PopCultureZone.com is an online shop focusing on hot new comics, including exclusive and incentive variants, CGC graded comics, and tons of other inventory, including pop culture toys and other collectibles, all at low and competitive prices. PopCultureZone.com ships all over the US. And if you are buying raw comics, they offer flat rate shipping of only $4.99. That's right, $4.99. Absolute craziness, right? And there's no taxes included, excluding New Jersey. Pop Culture Zone is also on eBay, where they hold a 100% positive feedback rating with over 8,000 completed transactions for this year alone. Make sure to check out the link to their website below, as well as their eBay link, so be sure to give them a follow there as well.
What is going on, everyone? Chris with Journals, Comics, and Pop Culture. Today, we're talking about fair market value and what we as buyers should expect when looking at a book that we want to purchase, and how do we come to a fair price, and is that fair price considered fair market value? Before we get into it, if you aren't subscribed to the channel, please take some time to do so. Of course, check out all the awesome links below as well. But let's just get right into this topic, folks. So fair market value, I talk about it a lot. A lot of YouTubers that talk about comic books talk about it a lot. And there's a lot of people in the hobby that look at fair market value as this absolute science, or as this, holy, this holy FMV, where anytime you're in the hunt for a book, it has to be fair market value. And how dare anybody talk about wanting a good deal? And we're going to ask the question today, what really is fair market value next to a good deal? Now, don't get me wrong. I've talked on my channel before about folks like I'm involved in, Facebook groups, like buy, sell, trade groups. And you see people saying, I'm in search of this comic book, but I don't want eBay prices. And I just think that's so cringe because, look, well, that's a whole other video of topic of discussion as well. But, if you're buying online, it's a market. And if a book is selling for a set amount on eBay, you're approaching a fair market value for that book, right? But where does a good deal come into play in a positive way? When is it okay to ask for a good deal? All right. So we're going to look at really like three main talking points today. Okay. And the first one we're going to dive into is fair market value is never one set number. All right. So the question is, should a seller always sell at fair market value? Well, how does a seller come across fair market value when it's not ever one set number? What it is, and I say this often, is a current rolling average that could change day to day or literally minute by minute. I give the example of West Coast Avengers 45 a lot over the last few months. So I'm going to go with it again. West Coast Avengers 45, first appearance of White Vision. I literally sat there in real time when that episode of WandaVision aired, when we saw White Vision for the first time in the end credit scene. And I sat there and watched a quote unquote fair market value for that book literally double and triple in the matter of minutes and hours. So when you look at fair market value, it can change day to day, minute to minute, and that's an absolute fact. So when we're talking about fair market value for comic books, we also got to keep into consideration the fact that sometimes, especially with more scarce books or books that don't have a lot on the market, especially maybe in a high grade or a high graded CGC grade like 9.8s, these specific sales can be outliers. If you only have one sale that happened 6 months ago, and maybe there's some speculation or there's some rumors around a character or a book, and then you get another sale, the recent sale, and then you have only two sales to look at, and maybe those sales are extremely different. Maybe the sale 6 months ago was $500. Maybe the one that was just sold was $1,500. So do you just automatically go and say, well, the new fair market value is $1,500? That's not exactly how it works. So my second talking point is this. If a seller looks at one or two recent sales and matches their book and simply calls it fair market value, not only will it not guarantee that that book will sell for that set amount, but other sellers might enter the market with competitive offers. Let me give you an example. All right, we're just going to use a hypothetical. Say Eternity comes into the MCU, right? And Eternity's first, I believe the first appearance is in Strange Tales 137 off the top of my head. So, say that book in, 9.0 is going for, I don't know, $1,000, right? And say, you got a couple of sales on the market over the last couple of years. So maybe there's a small handful of sales, say 4 sales in a 9.0, over the last couple of years, ranging from $800 and $900 to $1,000. Maybe they'd had a bit of an uptick over the couple of years, slowly gained value. And then we get this rumor or this announcement that Eternity is going to show up in the MCU. And you get one recent sale that sells for $2,500. All right. So now there's sellers that are seeing this and they're like, oh, I want to sell my 9.0 and sell it for $2,500. And they put it up on the market, right? And say there's 1 or 2 9.0s up on the market now for $2,500. Me as a buyer, I'm going to be hesitant to pay $2,500 for that book because there's not enough precedent before, prior to show me that that value is a fair value in terms of what the market as a whole is asking for it. Because it's just one book, it could absolutely be an outlier. And it may have been one individual that just had $2,500 laying around to spare. Maybe somebody, once they heard the announcement and they had that 9.0 and they put it on eBay, maybe they put it for $2,500 for a buy it now, right? And maybe one person just took the bait without even thinking, well, is that a bit overpriced? Maybe that's a bit overpriced. Maybe I should negotiate, right? So that's one thing. And that's something that any buyer should look at. Is this huge jump in price a buy it now or is it an auction? Because if it's an auction, then it goes to show you that there's actually more than one people and there's multiple people putting in a competitive bid saying, I'm willing to pay this much. And they put a bid in for $1,500. The next person comes and says, I'm willing to pay $1,700. It shows you that there's actually a created demand from not just one person splurging, right? But still, you got to be very, very cautious with one sale, right? Now, what this does for other sellers is if somebody takes one outlier sale that's like 3 times as much or even twice as much as a prior sale that happened maybe a few months ago or a year ago, who knows when, it can allow other sellers to jump in and see that book at $2,500 not selling. And what do? They come back with what? A competitive offer. A competitive offer. And that may be $2,100. Or maybe they come with an offer of $2,300 or best offer. You see what I'm saying? And this leads us into our third point today. And that is a good deal is actually a competitive offer price. Let me explain. When a book's demand exceeds supply, competitive offering is null because the demand can continue to drive the fair market value up rather than having potential customers waiting for a quote unquote good deal. So this goes back to what I was just saying. If there is demand on the market, the sellers don't need to worry about what's a good deal, right? Because you're going to have demand driving that value up more and more and more if demand is greater than supply. So it would be silly to sit here and say, well, there's multiple books selling at $2,500. There's auctions, people are bidding it up and they're bidding it up to $2,500. The demand is there. These books are selling hot. I'm going to price my book at $2,200. There's no reason for that because now you have precedent to what makes that book have a substantiated fair market value sitting around that $2,500 mark. What I might do is I might bump my book up a little higher, maybe I put my book at 2,600 and see if people will bite if there's that much of a demand. But when a book supply exceeds demand, asking fair market value could leave a book sitting on the market for days, weeks, or months without selling. Hence, why entertaining a quote unquote good deal is actually a smart business move and is the heart and core of competitive pricing. Competitive pricing allows sellers to liquidate assets faster and also allows for the market to reflect a very accurate fair market value. So we still are coming back to fair market value, folks. Never just look at one sale or the most recent sale as an indicator of fair market value. See, outliers, they do exist, especially in scarce, higher grade books. So just because one person wanted to pay 3 times the amount for a book from its prior most recent sale price, it doesn't mean the future buyers will pay the same amount unless, and this is key, unless the demand supersedes supply, forcing potential buyers to dish out their highest bids. And this is why bidding, if you're a buyer or even a seller trying to find a fair price, looking at auctions, especially if you're selling online, looking at auctions is a very solid way to understand fair market value, because you can see what the demand is doing to drive that value up real time from these bids, these live auction bids. Now, I know, there's going to be what we call shill bidding. There's always going to be inconsistencies due to people maybe trying to manipulate a sale. I always say people always jump to this idea, oh, people are manipulating the market. And I always tell people, like, back up off the conspiracy theories. You can't just, anytime a book sells for a high price, you can't just point the finger and say shill bidding or market manipulation. No, absolutely not. But it does happen from time to time. People do try to scam and get things by folks if it means getting money in their pocket. Unfortunately, we have unethical people out there. But for the most part, you can really gauge a market by looking at live bids. So again, folks, don't sit and look at fair market value as this exact science. And if you're if you're selling, if you know that a book doesn't have this extreme hot demand right now, it is going to be a smart business move to entertain a best value, or what can be to the seller, what could seem to the seller as essentially a good deal. It doesn't mean a seller is going to get over on you, or you need to be soft and let a seller bid you super low, right? Or send an offer that's super low and you need to be scared and think that you need to accept that offer. No. Another thing about the comic book market is this: even if the demand for a certain book might not be high or hot in a current moment, it doesn't mean that you should sell. A lot of times you can sit and understand the market, especially in a market for like Marvel books that have a lot of speculation around them. And we know that a lot of more of these characters are going to be showing up in the MCU and in TV and on the big screen. And maybe you have a book of a character that might not be moving right now, but you're going to sit and say, I'm going to sit with this book and I'm going to hold this book until we get an announcement or a trailer, because I feel that there's potential there, and that's perfectly fine. So again, folks, one last example I want to use was most recently the Fantastic Four 358, the Payback first appearance of the Power Scroll. And this book has been a $1 bin book, a 50-cent bin book, a $2 to $3 back issue book for years now, forever. And we get an announcement or a rumor. I don't even think it's not an official announcement. We get a rumor that Payback is going to show up in the Secret Invasion TV show. And this book has a 9.8 CGC that sells for over, $325? I believe it was over $300. And that's just insane to me. And look, maybe whoever bought it had that money and they wanted to dish it out. I don't know, but this is what I'm talking about. Just because that one book sold for that much money doesn't mean it's a fair market value right now. Especially when you can go on eBay and see that even newsstands, this is a early to mid 90s book. So the newsstands are a very small percentage of what's out there. There's, near mint raw books, newsstand selling for under 20 bucks still. So again, gauge the market, folks. Do your due diligence. Don't just get, as a buyer, don't get caught up thinking that fair market value is an exact science. And as a seller, don't get caught up in thinking that fair market value is just that most recent seller, that most recent outlier. You have, as a seller, it is your responsibility to be hip to how the market is moving day to day, week to week. And like I said, even sometimes hour to hour and minute to minute. So that's the video for today, folks. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I love engaging with you all every single day. And again, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please take some time to do so. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you guys so much. Be well, and until next time.